What's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I have a really cool video today that I'm excited to show you, and I think it's going to be cool because we're going to get to take a little trip together. In October, I traded a Third Power Dreamweaver guitar amp head that I had for a 1974 Marshall Super Lead Mark II, which is a 100 watt 4 input Marshall amplifier that's basically based on the plexi circuit without having the actual plexiglass front to the amplifier. And I got it back, and I knew when I got the amplifier that it had been modded to function and operate sort of like a JCM 800, where volume 1 was a gain and volume 2 was a master volume. What I didn't count for was that it was going to have so much gain on tap, actually more gain than the JCM 800 that I have here at the studio, that I wasn't really going to like it. It wasn't really going to do it for me because I really wanted to have that more classic Marshall sound. With the 100 watt 4-hole Marshalls, you should be able to get a cleaner sound, and then you should also be able to get that kind of barely broken up crunch sound, and then, you know, on into territory like Led Zeppelin and AC/DC. And that's what I was looking for, something that was going to give me those kind of classic rock Marshall sounds. So I took the amplifier to a great tech that I've been working with for probably 7 or 8 years. His name is John Stembridge. In Knoxville, Tennessee, his business is called The Sound Doctor. And that's what we're going to do. Today we are going to go and visit the Sound Doctor because I took him, the 74 Super Lead, and had him return it to stock operation. And part of what I want to say in this video is it's really important to find a tech to work with. If you're going to own gear for your studio, if you're going to collect amplifiers and have them to get different sonic textures, if you're going to buy outboard gear and microphones, it's really important to have a tech that you can trust, that will give you feedback based on your opinion of how you want things to sound and what needs to be repaired, and that you'll be able to trust that not only can they do the work properly and efficiently for you so that you're not without your gear for a really long time, and when it comes back to you, it's going to operate the way that you want it to operate. The really cool thing about this story and about John is that when this amplifier was initially returned to stock operation, it didn't function properly still. I actually got it back to the studio, and when I plugged it in, it still sounded a little bit weird. It definitely worked like a Plexi's supposed to work, but the gain came on way too early. It was distorted too early, and then it also had this kind of crumbly sound where it sounded like it was falling apart. And so I ended up getting kind of a second opinion about, hey, what could be wrong with this amplifier? And then I ended up talking to John and saying, hey, look, I think this thing's not right. And I actually recorded some sound clips and sent them to him, and he was cool enough to be like, hey, just bring it back in. Let's check it out. And so beyond that, it gets even cooler when yesterday I get a phone call saying, hey, I think I finally got this thing fixed. I found a couple of resistors that I think might have been blown up, and I missed them the first time, but I also have a couple of ideas for how to make this thing stay a little cleaner, a little longer for you. Why don't you come on down to the shop, bring a guitar, and we'll check this thing out, and it might take us a few minutes, but we'll get it working right for you. So that is what we are going to do today. We're going to take the camera, we're going to head to Knoxville, we're going to go to the Sound Doctor's shop, and we're going to check out this Marshall Super Lead. So we're down here at the Sound Doctor's shop. This is John, the Sound Doctor. Been bringing amps to him for a long time, and like I talked about at the intro part of the video, this is the amplifier that needed to come in for kind of a second visit. And what we did today that was really cool is we kind of just had a tuning session where we went through and looked at a couple different schematics of this amplifier and went through and changed a few values. So it's going to operate like a stock 4-hole Marshall where you can jumper the 2 channels together, but what I was looking for was something with 100 watts to have a little bit more clean headroom. And so that's what we did, was we went through, and John, you changed a few values around and kind of helped the amp to get to where we needed it to be.
Got rich detail, cleans up, nice, doesn't swamp out.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really cool is that we've been, this is probably the 10th or 12th amp that you've worked on for me over the past 7 or 8 years.
Plus some other
studio
audio
gear, yeah, microphones. Bailed me out of a microphone mod that I tried to do on my own that I screwed up. So I think it's really important to have a tech that you trust and that you can work with. And I know that you're also a live audio engineer, so I know that when I'm talking to you about how things sound sonically, we kind of have some common ground there, and so you can kind of understand where I'm coming from as somebody that does live sound and also does studio work. But I want to ask a couple of questions that I think kind of can help people kind of frame up what they should be looking for in a tech before they bring amps to somebody, so they can find somebody that kind of fits with them and they can build a good relationship with and take stuff to over a long period of time. Whether you're around the Knoxville, Tennessee area, and I know some of my followers and friends are, or you're in another city, I think it's really important to have somebody you can have that open communication with. So the first thing I just want to know is, how did you get into amp repair?
That is actually a path that started in high school.
Okay.
I took electronics, 2 years of electronics in high school. It was 2 hours the first year and 3 hours each day the next year, and played around with electronic stuff here and there with some jobs over the years. Probably the biggest thing that I did for a while was I worked building hearing aids. So
oh wow,
I was soldering wires the size of a strand of hair, and that stuff. Of course, I was much younger and did that via free of any visual aid.
Gotcha.
That and I did some stuff where I worked on a company that built car alarms for a while, and then there was a long time where I just didn't do. It was just kind of music and whatnot. But what happened, transpired from there is mods and stuff became kind of a thing you were seeing and reading about, pedals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was curious, and I was like, well, as my ear, the way that I hear, doing sound engineering stuff and whatnot, and then taking my electronics background, hey, there you go. That's what happens. That's what it's like all day.
Yeah, it sounded like your phone going off. People needing their amps fixed. The phone rang. It's fine. We're just going to make an edit.
From there, what I was doing is I was taking my knowledge as a sound engineer, the ear, and taking my electronics experience, and said, well, what would I do? What could I do with one?
Sure.
And I tried it, and everybody was like, that sounds good. Build me one.
Yeah.
So I was doing a few pedal mods and stuff, and then people started saying, hey, do you think you could fix something for me? I'm having a hard time. It takes so long, and this and that. And I'm like, well, let's see. So it became that I started repairing stuff.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
so along the way, have you found a particular circuit that you really like the sound of, or that's your favorite to maybe work on?
Of course, anything, old point-to-point, stuff like that. But my favorite stuff is when we do stuff like this.
Okay.
Is when I get to customize stuff, or improve on something, or make something more fitting to what someone is looking for in particularly. That can go all the way from just recommending and installing a different speaker. Yeah. To output transformers, or to just some value changes and some things like that. But that's some of my favorite stuff. You know.
Well, and that's my first experience with you, is that I had a dual rectifier that was my main studio amp for a really, really, really long time, and I don't remember what it was doing. It blew some tubes or something, I think, and I brought it to you, and probably 4 or 5 weeks later, you called me and said, hey, I've got the amp fixed, but if you let me do this thing to it, I think you'll actually like it a lot better, just knowing that you're using it in a studio. And that was just enough for me to be like, and I said, how much more is it going to cost? And I don't know, I think it was like an extra $100, and I was just like, do it, man, for an extra $100 for sure. So you did it, and then for a long, long, long time, and I used that thing on country records, worship records, rock and roll records. So
yeah, it
was a cool amp.
There's a lot of things where just some simple things can be done, to improve either the sound or functionality. Yeah. That case being that 5150 that just came in earlier. They have a fixed non-adjustable bias, and you're kind of at the mercy of putting tubes in there and say, is it intolerance or not? Whereas a simple mod to the bias circuit, and I can not only make sure it's within tolerance, but I can tune it within that range. Yeah. That's basically what we ended up doing with your Mesa. Okay. Is that type of thing.
So how long have you been here repairing stuff on your own? 8, 9 years?
Yeah, I want to say I've been at this location for about 9 years, and then I was at the store on Cumberland for about a year. Okay. And that's kind of where I was buying and selling. I'd been selling a lot of stuff via the internet for many years. And then it just got to the point where more and more people were wanting repair, and I'm like, that's where I need to go. I'll just go that direction and go with it and fill that hole of what people are needing.
So you've been doing this for 9 years here, or well, you've been repairing stuff for a lot longer than that. When you're talking about customers, amps, and gear that people, because most guys don't have, they're not like me where they've got 10, 12 guitar amps in the studio. They have one amp and it's their main amp, and they, maybe they can't practice with their band right now while you have it at the store or whatever, and so they probably ask you this question: how long is it going to take? Which I know you get that a lot, but what's something that they can do that'll help you? What are things they can take note of if their amplifier has just failed on them and they're about to bring you a guitar amplifier? Are there things that they can recount for you that makes your job easier? Or if it's another tech, that are going to make the tech's job easier?
Yeah, the big things for a tech is, it's not their diagnosis. It's what problems are you experiencing, and if it just fails completely, cuts out, won't even power on, that's all they're going to know.
Sure.
In other cases, they may just go, well, it's weak output, it's got hum, it's got, those kinds of things, and it will help your tech get to what he's looking for faster. You're going to have a starting point. You got to always have a starting point somewhere. Yeah. So that's why I ask those questions. I ask them in my repair form online. It's so that I can get a general idea, and especially worst case scenarios, if you have an intermittent problem, I need to know what can I do to reproduce the problem when it's on the bench.
I think that's a really good one. Yeah, what can you reproduce it?
The only other thing that I can think of for me or any tech too is, if you've got a piece of gear that you like, you're going to keep it, if you can make sure that there's service information available. That way it's any tech, and I've got a huge library of schematics. You saw how we easily pulled up the different variations, but that doesn't mean I have everything. Sure. And especially if it's kind of a more of an oddball thing, like, oh, these were limited production or handmade, and so if you have any kind of schematics, technical service information on those, that's always going to be a plus to the amp tech.
Cool. So one more question to close this out. I think, not everybody that watches this is going to live around the Knoxville area. And if you do live around the Knoxville area, the Sound Doctor is where you should bring your stuff. So shameless plug there, but this has been a great experience for me, and so I want to make sure that I rep you. This just being able to get the Marshall to where it's going to really work great for my studio. But if you're outside of Knoxville and you're looking for a tech, what are some questions that somebody, if they've never had this experience before, that maybe they've only had one amp and it just went down on them, what's something that they can, how can they know, how can they vet the guy that they're going to take their stuff to and know that he's worth his salt and he's not somebody that just kind of started reading schematics and watching YouTube videos and is going to, not that those guys are bad, some of those guys might be really good, but you know what I mean? Like, you want to know that somebody knows what they're doing and that they're going to take care of you.
I don't know that there's any telltale way, but one for sure would be like, well, who do the professionals use? Like, a guy like you that has all this gear in the studio, who are they using?
Right.
It's not always going to be, the requirement shouldn't always be who can do it fastest or who can do it cheapest. Right. That may not be the best work. In the end run, it could end up costing more or taking more time. So those shouldn't be the grandest requirements, but
I quit asking those questions a long time ago.
but finding out, who are the people that do this? If I'm just like my weekend user playing with my band, who are the people that are maybe getting their amps worked on that are touring in the area or studios in the area? Who do they go to? Probably would be a good.
Yeah, or maybe even if there's a company that has a lot of backline stuff that if they don't have probably those places might have an in-house guy, but if they don't have an in-house guy,
may or may not,
or they take in their backline stuff. So, well, dude, I really appreciate it. I think this project turned out great.
Yes.
It sounds fantastic, and
then you can do a video on it later when you get it back.
Oh yeah. Maybe we'll even do that in this video. Is cut in a few sound clips of what this guy sounds like once it comes back to the studio, or that might be the next one. But thanks for doing it, man. I really appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. We made a video.